So here is why your AI app is losing 30% of customers every single month, and how you can actually fix this with proper tracking. Now, my name is Ondrej, and I've built Vectel, my AI startup, from 0 to 14 months later, selling it for 1.8 million. And what I can tell you is that most people are looking at the wrong thing. They're looking at lagging indicators, right? So churn itself, aka how many customers you lose every single month or every single year, depending how you calculate it, this is a lagging indicator. It's not gonna tell you ahead of time. It's only gonna be reflected, like whatever changes you do this week, you're only gonna see that in a couple of months, which is very slow. Same thing with MRR and just revenue in total. These things are lagging indicators. It takes a lot of weeks and months for them to change, right? They're kind of slow. Now, by the time you see any changes reflected in these metrics, is usually already too late. When you see high churn, it's like things you did 2-3 months ago and changing it. And that, like, when you hit that and you see like 50% churn, 40% churn, it could be very painful and it can take a long time to make any decisions. And as a startup, the number one thing is your agility, is speed, right? So what we did in Vectel, well, we switched from churn as being the number one metric. Now, obviously we kept tracking it, but we needed something faster, something that would like be a proper leading indicator, right? Something that we could like ship a new update and within 48, maybe 72 hours, see changes, how, whether it improved or worsened our metrics. So we needed to figure out a way to predict when a certain user would cancel or stay forever, right? So I came up with this metric. Now, the reason I came up with it is because I watched a bunch of interviews with the Cursor CEO. I definitely recommend watching his interviews. Michael Troll, this guy. If you can, watch a bunch of his podcasts, really great advice. Now, he was talking about like in the early days of Cursor, they were just focusing on one metric, right? And I was like the weekly paying users or something like that. Now, I wanted to make it relevant for us, so I invented APPU, active paying power users, right? So the definition is simple. It's people who are paying, so they are not on the free plan, and they have to use Vectel at least 4 times a week, right? Now, the reason why this is meaningful is very simple. If someone is paying and using your app, daily or at least 4 days of the week, they will not churn, right? Because they're investing in 2 different ways, with their money and with their time. So if they like to use the app and if they like to use it so much that they pay for it, they're very unlikely to cancel, right? Now, this is just one metric. You can track this quickly. You can push an update, make it easier to upgrade, add some anti-cancellation flows, add some email sequences, and you can see this change daily or at least, 48 hours. Another thing is the ratio of daily active users to monthly active users. If you have, let's say, 10,000 monthly active users, but only 100 daily active users, that's really bad. Means only 1% of your monthly active users use the app every single day, right? So you want to measure this and you want to track this. We used PostHawk for that. PostHawk is great. If you're not using PostHawk for tracking, you're kind of missing out. Here it is, boom. So this is what we use for the product metrics. For like errors and uptime and stuff, we use Sentry, and we had some like internal tracking as well in our database. But PostHawk is really good for product metrics, right? So again, very easy to implement. You can do it in 30 minutes. Just tell your Claude Code to do it. And you need to be looking at these metrics. Another one is usage, right? So just simple usage of raw daily active users, but also minutes. Are people using your app for longer? If not, that's a major issue. And this is a metric that you can track every single day, the average usage time per user. So these are leading indicators and they can change within 24 hours of you shipping a new update, which means you can move a lot faster than the people who only look at lagging indicators like MRR or churn. Now, what are some churn reduction tactics? First, calling with APPUs. Whoever is your APPU, your active paying power user, the people who are not only generating you the most money, but actually using the app the most, you should be calling with them basically every day. And you should make it very easy for them to book a call with you. Yes, you as the founder. And yes, it's not scalable, but that's not the issue. The issue is that these people will give you priceless feedback and you can fix issues before they escalate into refunds and cancellations. So also these people have the most aligned incentives, right? In business and in life, there's 2 concepts that are completely supreme above everything else, at least I believe, is like incentives and your environment, right? If you take somebody who's like extremely overweight, and you put him into a house with 5 marathon runners, that person is not going to be overweight for a long time, right? So that is the power of the environment. But incentives, if you give somebody a performance incentive at a company, and like if they perform, they're going to get a higher percentage of the revenue, they will perform much better than that same person with a base salary, right? Everybody understands this, but people are not doing it. The beauty of APPUs is that they have aligned incentives with you. If you talk to paying users who don't really use the app, they're not going to give you good feedback. In fact, most people will not give you good feedback. This is the dangerous part. Level 1 in building a startup is like you're not talking to customers enough and you're not getting any feedback. But level 2, the second most dangerous thing, is that you're getting wrong feedback from the wrong type of people. And it can be very difficult to get honest, high quality feedback. And that's why talking to APPUs a lot and making it very easy for them to talk to you is essential. Next up, exit form. This is so simple, but like so many of you guys are not doing it. You need to have a mandatory form that people need to fill out before you allow them to cancel. Like literally, they need to answer like 1 or 2 questions before they can go to the cancel page. And yes, this is legal. This is a completely standard practice. But if you're not collecting data from people who are canceling, you don't know what to focus on, right? In business, you can do 100,000 different things at any given point to grow your business. But as you scale, you can kind of feel your way, you can kind of, I call it vibe decision making. You can vibe decision your way to 1K MRR, 5K MRR, maybe even 10K MRR. But if you want to go to 50K MRR, 100K MRR, if you want to exit a company, you need to be serious. You need to treat the business like a proper business, which means you need to focus on the biggest bottleneck and the biggest problem. If you don't track metrics, with stuff like Posthawk, and if you don't have exit forms when people are trying to leave, how do you know what's resulting in churn? The main reason you have churn in the very first place is because you're losing customers, right? If people were not canceling, you wouldn't have any churn and you would be scaling like crazy and your company would be extremely valuable. But the reason why you're struggling to scale is because you have high churn, which means people are canceling. So many of you, and the reason I'm so passionate is because I was one of those people, are not asking people to give a reason. And not just optional, where you can like go to cancel and then it's like sideways, select a reason why. No, they go to cancel and they have to select a reason why. Otherwise, they cannot cancel. And again, don't make it too long because that is sketchy. You don't want to be shady reputation, which is like 1 or 2 bullet points, like selectable options, which takes, 10, 20 seconds to fill out, but it gives you priceless data on why people are actually canceling and leaving. So do this right now if you don't have this, absolutely essential. And then the third thing, which is kind of also obvious, but like treat your best customers better. Give VIP support to people who pay you the most, right? Like you should have the same customer support for somebody who's a free user versus somebody who pays you $500 a month. And again, sounds obvious, but so many of you are not doing it. Now, what is the result of implementing some of these things and a lot of other updates, but mainly focusing on leading metrics rather than lagging indicators? The result is that we cut our churn in half in like 60 days, right? So at the beginning, I was super beginner. That's why like these videos will save you so much time if you actually implement them, because Vectel was my first AI startup. I was not a startup founder before that. I was not a professional developer. I didn't know what I was doing. So at the start, I wasn't even tracking churn. I was completely YOLOing it. When I started tracking churn, however, because I was struggling to grow, I realized my churn was like 40%, which is disgusting. Like it's terrible, right? So then we, for the next 2 or 3 months, instead of focusing on, mass marketing and like kind of viral tactics, we focused on retention and reducing our churn, and we managed to get it from 40% to 20%, which still not that good for the software products, but it's infinitely better than 40%, and this allowed us to scale again. And we managed to do that in like 60 days or maybe like 75 days by implementing these tactics and by focusing on leading indicators. So if you identify the gaps where people cancel before they cancel, such a simple thing, guys. If you want to know when someone cancels, the biggest predictor, you should like map out the steps that happened before that, right? And one of the things that's like universal is they stop using your app. People don't cancel the stuff that they use every day or at least every week. If someone hasn't used your app in 14 days, 3 weeks, 1 month, and they're still paying, you should be panicking. You shouldn't be like, that's nice, this person is still paying, they're not even using. No, you should be trying to reactivate them, which means automated emails, right? For example, you can use Resend. That's another software we use. So this is what we use at Vectel, Resend. It's a very easy email service for developers, right? It literally says it in the SEO. But again, if somebody has stopped using your app and they haven't used it in 2 weeks, instead of you chilling and not doing anything about it, like most of you don't have any email automation set up, you should use something like Resend to reactivate that customer, right? Because if you don't, that customer will eventually cancel. Because once he notices that he's paying for a service he's no longer using, that's how cancellations happen. And this is universal, but there's going to be more specific leading indicators for your product. But this one, all of you can apply right now. So what did we learn? We learned that leading metrics are much more important than lagging metrics. We use that usage frequency predicts churn before it happens. So obvious, but again, you need to do something about it. Then the why behind the cancellation is gold. This is the best information, the purest issue with your product you're going to get. And then VIP treatment retains the most important and valuable users. Hopefully you found this video valuable. If you did, make sure to apply to the accelerator. Inside, we work with the best founders. We reject 98% of applicants, and we work with them for 6 months straight to help them scale their AI business to 200K ARR and beyond. So if you're interested and if you want to work with me one-on-one, make sure to apply. It's going to be the first link below the video.